Good morning, everyone. On a Monday, it's September 27th from CBS News headquarters in New York. This is Up to the Minute. Good to see you this morning. I'm Terrell Brown. President Obama hits the road again this week to push his economic policy. A key point continues to be tax cuts for the middle class. But Congress will likely adjourn soon without resolving the issue.
I've called for tax cuts for middle-class families who saw their income shrink by 5% during the last lost decade.
The president travels to Albuquerque, New Mexico tonight and hosts an economic forum tomorrow. Democrats hit a wall trying to get tax cuts extended for the middle class. Republicans refuse to support it unless the rich get lower taxes as well. They say it's the wealthy who hire new workers and ease unemployment, but nonpartisan experts are punching holes in that argument.
The decision to hire a worker is not based on, do I have a tax cut? It's based on, do I need another worker to meet the demand?
Leaders in both the House and the Senate say an agreement is nowhere in sight. They'll send everyone home this week. The debate picks back up after November's midterm elections. The Obama administration is also trying to keep the Mideast peace talks alive. Israel stopped construction of Jewish settlements in the West Bank for the past 10 months in a show of good faith, but that period's now expired. Settlers celebrated the expiration this week and resumed some construction despite pleas from Israeli leaders to show some restraint. Palestinian leaders have said they'll now take the issue to a meeting of Arab states. A Georgia pastor vows to keep fighting the sex allegations against him, but it's what he didn't say during Sunday services that also drew attention. Mark Strassman reports.
Thank you. Glory, 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 glory. Hallelujah.
For these Georgia faithful, Sunday services hit close to their spiritual home. Allegations of sinful sexual conduct against their own pastor, Bishop Eddie Long.
I'm under attack.
Attacked by 4 young men from his ministry. Long adopted them in their teens as his spiritual sons. But they say Long also seduced them with cars, jewelry, and scripture for sex. They were all past the legal age of consent, but are suing for emotional distress and fraud.
He took them on trips around the country and around the world and engaged in those sexual acts in those places as well as also property owned by the church.
Long, a former car salesman, built New Birth Missionary Baptist Church into one of America's most powerful megachurches with 25,000 members. Long lives large. This mansion's part of his gospel of prosperity, and he flaunts it, along with his gym physique. But Sunday, he was more humbly defiant.
I have never in my life portrayed myself as a perfect man, but I am not the man that's being portrayed on the television.
There's also the hypocrisy factor. Bishop Long practices so-called muscular Christianity, socially conservative, male-dominated, and anti-homosexuality.
I want to serve notice to...
In 2004, he led this Atlanta march against gay marriage.
You'd have to kill me to shut me up.
Sunday, Long refused to answer questions and never flat-out declared his innocence.
But he never declared his guilt there either.
Eddie and Greta Fennell, like most church members here, stand by him.
We all sin. So even if he's guilty, we support him 100%.
And I'll be here next week.
Long vows to fight the charges. His mega ministry is on the line.
First of all, let me thank
Mark Strassman, CBS News, Lithonia, Georgia.
Parts of the Midwest are drying out after severe flooding engulfed several towns. Several states have been hit from South Dakota to Wisconsin. And this disaster could also lead to another one sometime next week. Cynthia Bowers reports.
Across the upper Midwest, the torrential rain may be gone, but the pain lingers. Small communities in Minnesota, South Dakota, and Wisconsin remain ghost towns after floodwaters up to 6 feet high inundated homes and washed over roads. This all the result of several days of heavy rain across the upper Midwest last week. As much as 10 inches fell in some places. Residents in tiny Zumbro Falls, Minnesota, who evacuated after their town went under, were finally allowed back, but only for a visit. Some found there wasn't much left to salvage. The story is much the same in Trent, South Dakota, not far from Sioux Falls, which saw its worst flooding in nearly 20 years.
What went through my head was, boy, you better get all my stuff.
In western Wisconsin, too, Sunday was a day for rummaging through waterlogged homes and belongings. Troy Byland lives in the hard-hit town of Arcadia.
Got phone calls from a few friends letting me know that flooding was occurring in Arcadia, so I got up and my house was already full.
Wet fields will keep farmers from what they'd hoped would be an early harvest. And even after these parts dry out, the flood threat continues. This high water will swell the Mississippi River and could threaten Iowa in early October. Cynthia Bowers, CBS News, Chicago.
Computer experts around the world have a mystery on their hands. A sophisticated software worm is infiltrating computer systems across the globe. It's so well engineered that the malware can target specific computers controlling industrial plants. But which target is the big question? Manuel Gallegos has more.
Experts say Stuxnet is an exceptionally sophisticated computer worm that attacks the software used to control automated systems. It's now been found in thousands of computers in Asia, Europe, and the U.S. But 60% of the infected computers are in Iran. Stuxnet's first target may have been Iran's nuclear facilities.
It's one of the most sophisticated threats we've seen, and certainly one of the most worrying, considering it actually wants to change how machinery in the real world works.
Stuxnet is designed to weave its way into automated systems that control anything from an oil refinery to a water treatment facility. Once inside a computer, it secretly steals information and rewrites computer codes. Security experts say this malware or malicious software is no simple virus dreamed up by a hacker, but one that took 5 to 10 experts a minimum of 6 months to create.
There are not too many people who could pull this off. Certainly a government agency would be one of the suspects.
Experts believe Stuxnet was originally contained in a memory stick. It first struck in June 2009, but wasn't detected until a year later. Iran's state-run news agency says the cyber attack has had no impact on its nuclear facilities, but admits some of its employees' software has been affected.
I mean, it's interesting to see that the Iranian government itself has come out and acknowledged that it has been struck.
Trita Parsi believes it's a new dimension in sabotage and warfare. How would you characterize Iran's response?
Well, on the one hand, the Iranians may want to portray that they've not really been hit hard by this in order to, part of their bluster, saying that they're doing really well. On the other hand, they want to convey to their own population that the United States does not have positive intentions towards the Iranians.
Computer security experts are now trying to decode the insidious threat, but its creators hid their tracks so well, experts say we will likely never know who created it. Manuel Gallegos, CBS News, New York.
Stay with us. This is CBS News Up to the Minute. We're back in 2 minutes.
Isn't it times like these that reminds us of what's important? The people in our lives, the ones we love, the ones who love us. And after all, what could be more important than love? So if you're asking yourself if you can afford to get away with savings like these, how can you afford not to? This month only, save up to 65%. Call 1-800-SANDALS.
When mucus makes you cough, it can be a long night.
I love coming to the Corsa Cabana. Let's dance. Oh, they're playing our song, Hacker's Delight.
Maximum Strength Mucinex DM breaks up mucus and quiets coughing.
Song's over!
And only Maximum Strength Mucinex DM gets rid of mucus and quiets coughing for 12 hours.
12 hours?
Mucinex in, mucus out.
Swiffer WetJet absorbs and traps so much dirt, you'll never go back to your old mop.
Hey, Mop! Want to suck up dirt and grime like Swiffer WetJet? Then try the Absorba Straw! Now you're getting it!
Sorry, Mop, but Swiffer WetJet has a dirt-dissolving solution and super absorbent pads that trap and lock dirty water deep inside the gradient core, while mops can just spread it around. Swiffer cleans better or your money back.
Blinded me with science!
Steve Hartman travels to Australia to prove everybody in the world has a story, but he never expected this.
That was eating me!
Tonight on the CBS Evening News.
There's a moment in every interview where you just know the conversation has changed, that we're finally getting to something. For the record, have you ever used steroids? And it's at that moment when I know I've really done my job and that you are getting the real story.
The CBS Evening News with Katie Couric. Your questions answered.
It's a frightening reminder of the pace of Haiti's reconstruction and the fragility of everyday life in the earthquake-ravaged nation. On Friday, a powerful storm slammed into Port-au-Prince. It wasn't a hurricane or a tropical storm, but it killed at least 6 people. It shredded one of the 10 cities that sprung up after the quake in January. 8 months after the quake, those makeshift shelters are still home to more than 1 million people. We have Imogen Wall on the phone this morning. She's the United Nations humanitarian spokesperson in Haiti. Imogen, good morning to you.
Good morning.
3 days now since that storm, and as you walk through the streets, what are you hearing? What are you seeing this morning?
Well, mostly the streets are back to normal. The storm did bring down some trees, but they've all been cleared now. So if you walk around Port-au-Prince, you will see normal day-to-day life. In the camps, it's a slightly different story. We've now identified 162 camps that have humanitarian needs, as we call them, mostly shelter and a need for mitigation. That means help with drainage. Most camps, we're seeing not very high numbers of tents. There were a few that were badly affected, but the issue we've got is there's the issue we have is that there were a lot of camps affected. Some of them are reporting quite small needs, so they're spread across a very big area. The assessment numbers are still coming in, but that's what we're looking at the moment. The good news is that in the places where what we are seeing is that we've put a lot of work into mitigation, because obviously the rainy season has been upon us for some time, which means putting in canals and trenches and drainage systems into camps, and those seem to have worked in most of the places we've seen.
Imogen, the face of this disaster so far seems to be the children. We know now that 2 children were killed in this storm. There's still a humanitarian crisis in this country, as you mentioned. What needs to happen next to further progression?
Well, we need to finish the response to the storm, which we'll do in the coming days. We need to continue to look after people in the camps, those displaced by the earthquake. The reality is we will have camps here for some time, so those need to be supported. In the meantime, we also need to continue contingency planning because, of course, we're not out of hurricane season yet, so there's still a big danger there. But at the same time, we also have to really get the next stage, which is technically called transition, which is when you're going into long-term reconstruction work. We really need to get that going. The biggest problem there has been the lack of funding that's come through from donors, from governments mostly, not the public. The public was extremely generous in the first days after this response, and the humanitarian operation has been built on the back of that. But to build what needs to be built in Haiti over the next 5 to 10 years is going to take a lot.
And that long-term aid, Imogen, we're 8 months out of this earthquake. The question that many people will ask here this morning are why people still living in tents in this country?
Well, it's an understandable question, but I think if you were here, you'd understand the realities very quickly. I mean, the population we have in camps is roughly the equivalent to the population of Las Vegas. You're talking about rebuilding a city in a country which had a completely inadequate building industry, that had no seismic codes, for example, so we have to make sure that all that's put in place. That means the right materials, the right standards of materials. It means people trained to actually build according to those standards so we know those buildings are safe. And of course, it's not just houses, it's whole infrastructure. It's hospitals, it's prisons, it's schools, it's large buildings. And if you think about how long it would take even to build a hospital in America and multiply that across an entire city, you'll have some idea of what we're up against here in doing this.
It is certainly an endeavor that is going to take a very long time to even get to any achievable goal. Imogen Wall, a UN humanitarian spokesperson from Haiti this morning. Imogen, we really appreciate you joining us and best in your efforts.
Thank you so much.
60 people were on board a Delta flight from Atlanta to New York when it was forced to make an emergency landing Saturday night. It's a flight attendant talking to passengers, telling them what to do as sparks flew along the runway when the Delta flight landed at JFK International. Officials say the emergency landing was prompted by a landing gear problem. And as you can see, when all was said and done, cheers and applause. No one on board was hurt. Hyundai is issuing a recall on more than 139,000 cars because of a steering problem. The recall affects 2011 Sonata models built between December 11, 2009 and September 10th of this year. Hyundai says a manufacturing defect could cause drivers to lose steering control. Straight ahead this morning, a strange Capitol Hill testimony of Comedy Central star Stephen Colbert and why not everyone was laughing. This is Up to the Minute.
Let me tell you about a very important phone call I made. When I got my Medicare card, I realized I needed an AARP Medicare Supplement insurance card too.
Medicare is one of the great things about turning 65, but it doesn't cover everything. In fact, it only pays up to 80% of your Part B expenses. If you're already on or eligible for Medicare, call now to find out how an AARP Medicare Supplement insurance plan, insured by United Healthcare Insurance Company, helps cover some of the medical expenses not paid by Medicare Part B. That can save you from paying up to thousands of dollars out of your own pocket. These are the only Medicare supplement insurance plans exclusively endorsed by AARP. When you call now, you'll get this free information kit with all you need to enroll, so you can join the millions of people who have already put their trust in AARP Medicare Supplement Insurance. Plus, you'll get this free guide to understanding Medicare.
The prices are competitive. I can keep my own doctor.
And I don't need a referral to see a specialist.
Call now to get a free information kit. Plus, you'll get this free guide to understanding Medicare. And the advantages don't end there. Choose from a range of Medicare supplement plans that are all competitively priced. We have a plan for almost everyone, so you could find one that fits your needs and budget. With all Medicare supplement plans, there are virtually no claim forms to fill out. Plus, you can keep your own doctor and hospital that accepts Medicare. And best of all, these plans are the only Medicare supplement plans endorsed by AARP.
When they told me these plans were endorsed by AARP,
I had only one thing to say. Sign me up.
Call the number on your screen now and find out about an AARP Medicare Supplement Insurance Plan. You'll get this free information kit and guide to understanding Medicare to help you choose the plan that's right for you. As with all Medicare supplement plans, you can keep your own doctor and hospital that accepts Medicare, get help paying for what Medicare doesn't, and save up to thousands of dollars. Call this toll-free number now.
All we need to do now is just put our platter in the oven, which we've already prepped. Hold on, Sharon. You can't cook that sea bass in a greasy oven.
Why not?
You'd never cook with pots and pans that dirty, would you?
No.
New Easy Off Trigger is fume-free like the leading all-purpose cleaner and cuts through up to 5 times more grease. It's the best way to keep your oven perfectly clean every day.
Wow.
You learn something new every day.
Easy Off. Good food deserves a clean oven. Easy Off Cooktop Cleaner. Unbeatable on tough grease.
A lot happens early on The Early Show. Weekday mornings on CBS.
The immigration law passed in Arizona this summer threw issues like illegal immigration and border security into the spotlight. And as Mark Phillips reports this morning, European leaders now find themselves talking about immigration.
It's a political ad in this month's election in Sweden. You don't have to speak the language to understand the message. An elderly white Swedish woman is being threatened by burqa-clad Muslim women. The ad was considered so offensive it was banned. But the right-wing Swedish Democratic Party made such significant gains in the elections on an anti-immigration platform that others came out to protest.
There are a lot of people here in Sweden that does not agree with the things that has happened.
A wave of anti-immigrant sentiment is sweeping across Europe. The forced expulsion from France of 8,000 Romanian gypsies so far this year is just the most visible example.
This is a situation I had thought Europe would not have to witness again after the Second World War.
And in Germany, Chancellor Angela Merkel, sensing the public mood, hardened her stand against immigrants who failed to adopt German values, code for Muslims. They have to obey our laws, she said, including the laws on the rights of women. As recent waves of immigration, legal and illegal, have come in from Eastern Europe and from Africa and the Middle East, public opinion polls have shown a demand for stricter controls. Majorities from the mid-60% range to the mid-80s have been calling for tighter borders.
Governments have seen the polls. They realize that the general public feel that governments are losing control. And so there has been, I think, a number of rather desperate attempts to appear strong to populations.
Yet the migrants are still arriving, these by boat in Spain. And the anti-immigrant reaction is still growing. Mark Phillips, CBS News, London.
And last week, immigration was the topic of a bizarre hearing on Capitol Hill. Comedian Stephen Colbert testified before a House subcommittee, and he was in character when he did it. But not everyone saw it as a joke. Nancy Cordes reports.
Morning, Stephen. With Stephen Colbert at the witness table, this congressional hearing felt more like open mic night.
I am happy to use my celebrity to draw attention to this important, complicated issue. And I certainly hope that my star power can bump this hearing all the way up to C-SPAN 1.
The fake conservative TV host was invited to testify about the plight of migrant farm workers after he accepted a challenge on his show.
I'll do it. All right.
To spend a day packing corn and picking beans.
Are there any beans there in the shade?
At a farm in upstate New York.
When you're picking beans, you have to spend all day bending over. It turns out, and I did not know this, most soil is at ground level. If we can put a man on the moon, why can't we make the earth waist high?
Does one day in the field make you an expert witness?
I believe one day of me studying anything makes me an expert in something.
It's standing room only in there right now.
Outside the hearing, fans lined up like they would for a taping.
I think America needs some truthiness laid upon it.
My great-grandfather did not travel across 4,000 miles of the Atlantic Ocean to see this country overrun by immigrants. He did it because he killed a man back in Ireland. That's the rumor. I don't know if that's true. I'd like to have that stricken from the record.
Some Republicans called it a stunt.
Maybe we should be spending less time watching Comedy Central and more time considering all the real jobs that are out there.
Democrats argued many celebrities have come before Congress.
Elmo's testifying on Capitol Hill.
But Elmo's testimony was family fare. Some of Colbert's was not.
I don't want a tomato picked by a Mexican. I want it picked by an American, then sliced by a Guatemalan and served by a Venezuelan in a spa where a Chilean gives me a Brazilian.
At the end of the hearing, even Colbert acknowledged this issue is no laughing matter.
This seems like one of the least powerful people in the United States are migrant workers who come and do our work, but don't have any rights as a result. And yet we still invite them to come here and at the same time ask them to leave.
And if this was a bid for publicity, it certainly worked.
In fact, just 2 weeks ago, that same House subcommittee for immigration and citizenship held a hearing and not a single camera showed up. This time, there were dozens. Nancy Cordes, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
Now for a look at your Monday morning weather. The latest satellite picture shows a great view of clear skies across much of the country from the west coast to the Mississippi Valley. But along the east coast, rain clouds are starting to build. Meanwhile, in the northwest, clouds are pushing in from the Pacific. A little later on today, a storm system will bring some much-needed rain to the southeast and wet weather to the northeast. A few showers will also form in the northwest. Skies will be sunny over the rest of the country, but temperatures will start to fall in the eastern half of the nation. Once again, the New York Jets are making headlines off the field before this week's game. To the highlights, wide receiver Braylon Edwards forced to sit out of the first quarter of the Jets game against Miami, but Edwards wasn't riding the pine in the third quarter. With his team trailing, Edwards hauls in a Mark Sanchez pass and goes down the sideline 67 yards for the go-ahead touchdown. Closing seconds of the game, though, Miami trailing by 8, and Chad Henne's pass into the end zone is broken up and intercepted. The Jets went on the road 31-23. You know, all that talk about the Eagles quarterback situation was red hot last week. It might cool off now. Coach Andy Reid flip-flopped on his starters midweek, and he's probably glad he did it because of this. Vic was on fire. He threw for under 300 yards and 3 touchdowns, and in the fourth, runs one in from 17 yards out. The Eagles all over the Jaguars in this one, 28-3. An NFC South battle between the last two winners of that division, the Saints and the Falcons. Saints take a 21-17 lead in the third, but late in the fourth quarter, Matt Ryan finds Roddy White in the back of the end zone. The Falcons go up 24-21, but the Saints would tie it and send this one into overtime. In OT, Saints kicker Garrett Hartley misses a chip shot field goal. Atlanta gets the ball back, and Matt Bryant sends a 46-yarder through the uprights. Atlanta wins it 27-24.
Super Bowl champion New Orleans Saints at the Superdome.
Before they can run, they have to walk. before they can walk. We have to help. MDA, helping Jerry's kids.
Victor Ray, this is Scorpion 23 traveling west on MSR. One Victor hit by IED at Grid. Mike Bravo, 310-737. This is small arms fire. Request QRF and medevac at this location. Over.
He was there when his country needed him, and we'll be there when he needs his country. Join us and send your message of support to our wounded warriors at USO.org. The USO, until everyone comes home.
Bipolar disorder is a brain condition that causes unusual or dramatic mood swings. It affects millions of Americans and compromises their ability to function. When diagnosed, bipolar disorder can be effectively treated by mood stabilizers. But most people with bipolar disorder suffer for years without help because the symptoms are missed or confused with other illnesses like depression. Learn how easily you can help keep this from happening to a loved one. Visit cbscares.tv.
If you're seriously depressed, there is nothing, repeat, nothing to be ashamed of. Millions suffer from depression, including some of the most creative and successful people. Depression is a medical disease that can be effectively treated, even if you feel helpless and hopeless. These are typical symptoms of depression that go away with the right treatment, so please get help. If you do, you can beat it, just as I did. CBS Cares.
Whoa, look out below. Pennsylvania's silo came crashing down on a barn Saturday. The people on the farm noticed earlier in the day that the silo was leaning to one side. That would be a problem. They had to hurry to get a dozen of the cows out of the barn before the silo collapsed. There was also some concern that the silo could take out power lines. A family member says this was the second silo to fall on that farm. They want to move to the left a little bit when they build the next one. Finally this half hour, the new season of 60 Minutes premiered last night, and that means we'll be bringing you all new commentaries from Andy Rooney. Last night, Andy wondered what's in a nickname.
We don't always get to call ourselves by the name we like best, and for some reason, there are fewer nicknames for women than there are for men. I like the name Andrew, but most people call me Andy. I like Andrew and don't particularly care for Andy. But what am I going to do about that? Last week, I read a headline that called Obama the pothole prez because he wants to spend $50 billion to fix our roads. It's dumb, and I don't think pothole prez is a name that'll last. Honest Abe was a good name for Lincoln, although I'd be surprised if he was actually called that very often. Tricky Dick, Richard Nixon. No one would call him that to his face, of course, but he must have heard it and hated it. Jimmy Carter was the peanut farmer. Bill Clinton, Slick Willie. John Adams was fat. They say people called him his rotundity. Grover Cleveland was Uncle Jumbo. William Howard Taft, Big Bill. People liked all these men enough to elect them president. I don't know why they gave them such mean nicknames. Obama has been president for more than 18 months now, and we still don't really have a good nickname for him. I don't know why that is. Most of us like him enough to give him a funny name. If I was president, I'd like to be called by my real name. Just call me Andrew.
Yeah, I've got a few myself. Let's go. Relly, Relly B, T-Money, Ninnels. That's what my mom calls me, actually. Why it was worth mentioning, I don't know. Why Andy Rooney was talking about it. That was him, by the way. And thanks for watching this half hour. I'm Terrell Brown. This is CBS News Up to the Minute.
Television, online, and on the go. CBS News, the most powerful reporting anywhere.
Now on CBS News Up to the Minute.
We weren't able to get it through the Senate because of Republican obstructionism.
The most irresponsible thing that I have seen since I've been in Washington, D.C.
The partisan battle over taxes gets put off until after the midterm elections.
So even if he's guilty, we support him 100%.
And I'll be here next week.
And Bishop Eddie Long still has the support of his church despite allegations of gay sex with young men. Good morning, everyone, from CBS News headquarters in New York City. This is Up to the Minute. Good to see you on a Monday. I'm Terrell Brown. Members of Congress have one more week of work before heading home to campaign for the midterm elections. One piece of legislation that will have to wait: an extension of the tax cut set to expire at the end of the year. Democrats promise they'll push through a middle-class tax cut after the elections. Republicans are insisting the rich aren't left out. CBS's Wyatt Andrews has more on the partisan battle.
With taxes now a key campaign issue, Democrats admit the House will not vote on tax cuts before the election. The House will more likely adjourn and go home this week, blaming Republicans for the deadlock.
We weren't able to get it through the Senate because of Republican obstructionism.
But Republicans say a tax cut decision is needed now as a signal to business it's time to hire more workers. Delaying the vote, they argue, is indefensible.
It will be the most irresponsible thing that I have seen since I've been in Washington, D.C., and I've been here a while.
Here's why the rhetoric is so intense. During the Bush administration, most Americans got income tax reductions, but under laws that expire at the end of the year. Republicans would make all of those tax breaks permanent at a 10-year cost of $3.7 trillion, and they're campaigning on the argument this is what the economy needs.
Now is the wrong time to raise taxes on anybody. We're trying to climb out of this recession.
Democrats would make most of the tax cuts permanent, except for couples that earn more than $250,000 a year. That costs $3 trillion, compared to the Republicans' $3.7, and that $700 billion difference raised from higher-income Americans is what this fight is about. Democrats say Republicans are carrying water for the rich.
They're going to have to explain to their constituents why they're holding up tax cuts for the middle class.
Tax cuts may be good politics, but their financial impact is questionable. Many nonpartisan experts say in this economy, tax cuts do not equal jobs.
The decision to hire a worker is not based on, do I have a tax cut? It's based on, do I need another worker to meet the demand?
But before or after the elections, both sides privately believe some kind of tax cut deal will happen this year, simply because no one wants the blame if all the tax cuts expire. Wyatt Andrews, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
In Afghanistan, the long-awaited assault on Kandahar is underway. Operation Dragon Strike is designed to drive out militants that are in towns and villages around the Taliban stronghold. NATO says 5 insurgents were killed. No coalition casualties are reported. Mideast peace talks are on life support this morning after Israel allowed a freeze on settlement construction to expire. Israel has hundreds of settlements dotting the Arab territories, but for the past 10 months, no new construction was allowed. Well, that's over, and hardline Israelis have wasted little time pouring concrete for new homes. CBS's Mark Phillips reports.
Israeli settlers on the West Bank weren't waiting for any official word before starting to build again, at least symbolically. After a 10-month freeze on new construction in most of the Palestinian territories, the foundations of a new building were being poured even as Israeli, Palestinian, and U.S. negotiators were frantically trying to work out some sort of a compromise that would enable peace talks to continue.
We will start building as in the past. We hope that tomorrow morning we'll see more and more and more new buildings.
Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu needs to placate the settler movement, on which his government depends to remain in power. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas put it starkly. The Israelis have a choice, he said. They can have peace or they can have settlements.
We're at a pivotal juncture in that region. It's important for Israel. It's important for the Palestinians. And we think it's essential that they keep on moving forward, keep on talking, keep on trying to work through these issues.
The Israeli government had urged the settlers to show restraint while the desperate last-minute negotiations continued, and in a concession to the Palestinians, hinted there would be limits to any new construction allowed. But restraint is a tough sell on both sides in the West Bank.
The Palestinians have to choose between sitting down and talking peace with us and turning their backs on us and missing yet another historic opportunity to reach peace.
Israel's Prime Minister Netanyahu may have called for peace talks to continue, but the Palestinians have already said they'll now take the settlement issue to a meeting of Arab states. The first serious bump in the road of these talks could still be the end of the road. Mark Phillips, CBS News, London.
Floodwaters from last week's torrential rains in the Midwest are making their way downriver at swamped towns along the way. Some small communities in Minnesota, South Dakota, and Wisconsin remain ghost towns. Floodwaters up to 6 feet high washed over roads and into homes. Embattled Bishop Eddie Long says he'll be back next week. The leader of the Georgia megachurch would not comment on allegations that he lured young men into sexual relationships. But from the pulpit, he painted himself as David fighting Goliath, and at least for now, his congregation is behind him. CBS's Michael Herzenberg reports.
Georgia megachurch Bishop Eddie Long received a rousing welcome at his first Sunday service since being accused of sexual misconduct.
I've been accused. I'm under attack.
This week, 4 men filed lawsuits against the famed preacher, claiming he used his spiritual authority, cars, clothes, jewelry, and electronics, as well as public and private jets at luxury hotels around the world to coerce them into sex acts with him.
He took them on trips around the country and around the world and engaged in those sexual acts in those places as well as also property owned by the church.
Standing in front of thousands of his followers Sunday, the pastor turned to the Bible.
I feel like David against Goliath, but I got 5 rocks and I haven't thrown one yet.
He did not specifically deny the allegations and wouldn't address their specifics. Police wouldn't discuss them either and are not investigating because the men claim the sex acts began when they were 17 and 18 years old. The age of consent in Georgia is 16.
I am not a perfect man, but this thing, I'm gonna fight.
Long has been an outspoken opponent of gay marriage, and his suburban Atlanta church has counseled gay members to become straight. Most of his congregants say they will stand behind him no matter what.
Even if he's guilty, we support him 100%.
And I haven't
Long said he would mount his defense in court, and to the applause of his congregation, promised he'd be back in church next Sunday. Michael Herzenberg for CBS News.
What do I say to those who discriminate against people with AIDS? I say that you need to get informed. People just like you have AIDS. All you need are a human body and a failure to protect yourself. CBS cares.
No one is born hating another person for the color of their skin, religion, or background. Hatred and intolerance have to be learned. Even in the grimmest times, I have seen glimmers of humanity which reassured me that man's goodness is a flame that can never be extinguished.
Dinner makes a difference. Celebrate Family Day on September 27th.
I'm Mark Sanchez with a message for women. This is the actual sound of my heartbeat. I'm sharing my heart to let you know that the symptoms of women's heart attacks can be different from men's. Please learn more. All it takes is a few minutes of your time in return for years of healthy life. That's a deal even my agent couldn't negotiate. Cover your heart. Learn more. CBS cares.
Every day in the developing world, babies are dying from preventable and treatable illnesses. Save the Children trains local health workers to provide life-saving care. Text Good Goes to 20222 and donate $10 to provide a package of newborn care. Learn more at goodgoes.org.
The Tea Party movement has built its popularity by taking aim at the democratically controlled Congress and the White House. But on Sunday's Face the Nation, two candidates who've enjoyed Tea Party support went on the offensive against the Republican Party.
What, in your view, have the Republicans done wrong?
Well, remember, the Republicans had a majority in Washington for the better part of 10 to 12 years, and they didn't fulfill some of the promises they had made in '94 when they were elected. You know, things like a balanced budget amendment, things like banning earmarks, things like term limits. These are fundamental things, among others, that people are looking for from Washington. If you say you're going to do that and you get elected, then do it. There's got to be some level of accountability. And unfortunately, politics today are full of people that think they can say or do anything because once they get elected, they think they'll raise so much money they can make you forget.
The Tea Party movement, the grassroots movement in Colorado recognizes that Republicans are every bit as much to blame for where we are right now as Democrats, but we have to find some discipline from outside of Washington, D.C. and impose it on our Congress and executive branch.
Those were U.S. Senate candidates Marco Rubio and John Buck on Face the Nation. Both are running for the U.S. Senate as Republicans. Now to California, the polls show the governor's race is a statistical tie. What is not even is how much money each candidate is spending on their campaign. Ben Tracy reports.
Nobody can accuse Meg Whitman of being cheap. She's flooding the airways, attempting to become the next Republican governor of California.
Failure has followed him everywhere.
The billionaire businesswoman has now spent $119 million of her own money on ads in her campaign operation.
Politics is a tough business, and you have got to tell people why to vote for you.
Hello, how are you? Her opponent, former California Governor Jerry Brown, has raised just $28 million.
If she treats the people's money like she treats her own, we would really be in big trouble.
But when it comes to getting elected, the money is huge. That's because California is so large, candidates are forced to campaign on TV. But with more than a dozen different media markets, including expensive ones such as San Francisco and here in Los Angeles, it isn't cheap. In recent weeks, Whitman has run nearly 5,000 campaign ads in California's major media markets. Brown has run less than 3,300, giving Whitman a nearly 1,700 ad advantage. Perhaps why she is tied with Brown in a state that normally leans left.
The electorate in California is very dissatisfied. We have over 12% unemployment in the state, and they're listening to candidates who say that they can create jobs.
But with a $19 billion deficit, some wonder if California has become ungovernable.
I don't know why anybody would want the job in California. The job is, you can't win.
Whitman is fighting on.
A legacy of failure.
Hitting Brown hard in her ads, including one featuring a testy exchange between him and former President Clinton during the 1992 presidential campaign.
He raised taxes as governor of California. He had a surplus when he took office and a deficit when he left.
Brown fired back, calling Whitman a liar.
Taxes went down under Jerry Brown, but Whitman's nose keeps growing by the millions.
Yet it's Brown who ended up with his foot in his mouth, oddly referring to the past president's famous denial during the Monica Lewinsky scandal to defend against Whitman's Clinton ad.
Just thank you very much.
Brown apologized and Clinton endorsed him and will campaign for him next month, showing in California party loyalty is thicker than bad blood. Ben Tracy, CBS News, Los Angeles.
Still ahead on a Monday morning, the latest on Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg's $100 million gift to Newark schools. Now some are questioning that donation. We'll talk about it after the break. This is Up to the Minute.
Good news, sir. I just got an email from the office, and word is people really love our claim service, especially the Auto Repair Express. Repairs are fast and they're guaranteed for as long as you own your car.
Hey, that's great. Is this your phone?
Yeah, of course.
But where do you put... I mean, how do you carry...
Here you go.
Thanks.
No, I got it, sir.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
We believe keeping kids healthy can start with healthy hands. And when they wash up, the last thing they need to touch is a germy pump. That's why we created the Lysol No-Touch Hand Soap System. It senses hands automatically and gives the perfect amount of soap to kill 99.9% of bacteria. For healthy tips and more, visit Lysol.com/missionforhealth.
What if Clean Sheet Day became Clean Sheet Week? New Ultra Downy April Fresh has scent pearls that give you a whole week of freshness with just one wash. And from day 1 to day 7, Ultra Downy April Fresh lets you climb into more freshness than this other fabric softener. So why settle? Get more, feel more.
While there are some home disasters you can't avoid, there is one you can. Septic system breakdowns affect 1.2 million homes in the U.S. each year. Septic backups can cost about $6,000 in expense and countless hours of repair. Rid-X costs only $6, and the advanced natural bacteria generate powerful enzymes which accelerate the waste digestion. Use Rid-X once a month and help save yourself from disaster.
On television, online, on the go, and now free on iPad. CBS News, the most powerful reporting anywhere.
Presidents, presidential hopefuls, soldiers, people who soldier on. The controversial, the compassionate, those who embody the true American character. When I ask anyone a question, I always have one thing in mind. What would you ask?
The CBS Evening News with Katie Couric.
A lot happens early on The Early Show, weekday mornings on CBS.
It was a defining moment of the Great Recession. 2 years ago this month, Lehman Brothers collapsed, costing investors $500 billion. The firm is still trying to pay off its creditors. This weekend, it put millions of dollars worth of art on the auction block. Tony Guida has more.
Thank you, sir. With the rap of the auctioneer's gavel, another symbol of Wall Street's recent gilded age fell to earth. At $420,000. Thank you. This art once adorned the executive suite at Lehman Brothers. Connoisseurs consider it an impressive collection of contemporary works.
These were very smart people buying very smartly at the right moment.
Too bad collecting art wasn't Lehman's main business. At the same time the investment bank was snapping up Rauschenbergs and Richters, it was also grabbing office buildings around the globe, often paying top dollar.
They were much better at picking art than they were picking commercial real estate.
Real estate proved to be the iceberg Lehman couldn't or wouldn't see. The bank leveraged itself to its eyelids with reams of residential mortgages that it carved into shaky securities. When it all went bad, Lehman toppled, and neither Washington's horses nor Wall Street's men could put the fabled bank back together again.
I mean, this bankruptcy was 10 times the size of Enron.
$660 billion to be exact. It nearly took the entire American economy down with it. Lawrence McDonald traded junk bonds at Lehman for 4 years. His book blames the bank's collapse on arrogance in the boardroom, not feverish action on the trading floor.
The story of Lehman Brothers comes down to one sentence. There were 24,992 people making money and 8 guys losing it.
Then are we all done at 700,000? Sotheby's raised $12 million Saturday selling Lehman art. Hardly enough to tip the creditors' limo drivers. In the 2 years since Lehman imploded, Washington and Wall Street have created new rules that they hope will prevent future cataclysms. Will they work? Wall Street and Main Street are watching. Tony Guida, CBS News, New York.
Also this weekend, Facebook co-founder Mark Zuckerberg made his gift to the Newark, New Jersey school system official. The 26-year-old billionaire was joined by Newark's mayor and New Jersey's governor in announcing the $100 million donation. Jay Dow has the details.
26-year-old Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg, worth $6.9 billion, is opening up his sizable checkbook for students in Newark, New Jersey's troubled school system.
I think that it'll be a symbol that can be replicated across the whole country. So I think that these are the guys to get it done.
Mayor Cory Booker and Governor Chris Christie accepted Zuckerberg's gift on Friday's Oprah Winfrey Show.
$100 million.
And appeared together again in Newark. Behind the buzz, the grant stands to put Newark on the path toward real change and calls for the city to take a bigger role in running its floundering school system, which the state took over back in 1995. Despite a yearly state-funded budget of more than $900 million for 40,000 students, Newark still has a staggering 46% dropout rate.
How do you ward off the perception that this gift is just throwing more money at the problem?
This money is going to give us the flexibility and hopefully, and I believe it will be, strategically invested to give us the competitive advantage to transform our system.
But there are questions about Zuckerberg's timing.
They're saying we stole the Facebook.
I know what it says.
So did we?
Just a week before, a less than flattering portrayal of the entrepreneur and the founding of Facebook hits theaters in the movie The Social Network.
If someone shows up on your doorstep with a check for $100 million, your first instinct is to say thank you, and it should be. But by the second day, I think you start to wonder, who are you again, and how come I've never seen you in my neighborhood?
But most parents and students, although skeptical, are thrilled.
We need so much stuff because our old reading books are ripped up and tore up.
Just hope they do a good deed with that money.
Newark already spends more than $23,000 per student, one of the highest in New Jersey. Mayor Booker says money alone is not going to solve the city's problems and intends to get the community involved to determine how to make Zuckerberg's donation add up to success. Jay Dow, CBS News, New York.
And it seemed like Mark Zuckerberg's gift to Newark came out of nowhere. You may not just be able to find $100 million, but you can find some pretty good bargains in unexpected places as well. For more on some offbeat spots to score some savings, Kelly Grant is here with us this morning, senior consumer reporter for smartmoney.com. Kelly, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Now, it's all about finding that hidden treasure in a place that you may not expect to find it. A bridal expo?
It's a great idea for people who are looking for home goods like furniture, mattresses, even some travel. Basically, it's big business to promote the married lifestyle at these expos, and all of the exhibitors are offering discounts. Now, anyone can go into a bridal show. You don't need to be getting married, but you want to check the list of exhibitors first to see who's going to be there, and then be prepared to put down a spam email address so that way you don't get lots of offers for your reception and flowers.
And even when you think about a bridal expo, you think about flowers, invitations, dresses, what the groomsmen are going to wear. Different shows have different things to offer, apparently.
They really do. We heard from one woman who found a 50% discount at a mattress warehouse that she was looking at buying a mattress from. We see Reebok is going to be exhibiting at an upcoming bridal show, some of the local restaurants, all sorts of interesting places that are really looking to get your business.
Now, usually in college, there is that one time of the year, usually at the beginning of the semester, where local vendors, businesses, cell phone companies are trying to reach out to students, somewhat like a student union. And you say go. That's a good thing to do.
You really should go. And mostly for student unions, we're talking about whatever the campus center is or wherever a lot of these businesses will congregate. Oftentimes, they'll be handing out coupon booklets that can be pretty valuable deals for local businesses. Of course, a lot of pizza places, but also, you know, local stores, auto shops, things of that nature. You'll also usually find at that point some of the cell phone carriers, cable companies, and even banks are going to be there trying to get students to sign up. And even if you're not a student, you know, you just live in the area, it can be a great place to find some of those good local deals.
Kind of mooch off the students a little bit, right?
Exactly.
That's right. Surplus auctions, are they legit?
They are, and these are ones that you want to look for, the ones that are run by some, you know, government association basically in your area. The city runs them. You'll find hospitals run them, schools run them, even the military. And you can find these legitimately either by checking in the newspaper or sometimes even calling directly. Another good one is police will auction off confiscated items. So you can find some really interesting deals there. It's not just something like at a hospital. Yes, you will see medical equipment, but you also find things like furniture, electronics, household goods. And the thing to watch out for here is that oftentimes these items are auctioned off in lots. So you're not going to go in and buy just one watch. You're going to be buying a lot of maybe 100 of them.
We very often hear of a card show or a boat show that may be coming to town, or a show that caters to one specific audience. Can you find a bargain there?
You really can, especially if you're in the market for whatever that show is focused on. Something like a boat show, for example. Obviously great deals on boats because you have all of these major brands in one spot. They're being very competitive, and oftentimes they're able to drop the prices pretty significantly. But you'll also find good deals on peripheral items. To use the boat show as a continuing example, we're told that they often have great deals on high-end watches that have nautical functions on them. So if you're in the market for a nice men's watch, good place to go.
And the last one, probably my favorite, certainly but not least here, I love a good yard sale.
Yard sales, flea markets, these are great options for people who really are just looking for deals. And, you know, there are certainly a lot of those sort of antiques roadshow type stories where you'll see somebody who bought a ring for $50 and it turns out it's worth $10,000. But even if you can't find that, you can still get plenty of good deals by negotiating and looking for some of these sales.
And there's the key, negotiating. All right, Kelly Grant from smartmoney.com. Kelly, good to see you this morning. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And for more money-saving advice, just head to our website, cbsnews.com. It's the up-to-the-minute page. When you get there,
Dinner makes a difference. Celebrate Family Day on September 27th.
Public school students won't develop future dreams if they never see the world outside of the classroom. At donorschoose.org, teachers list the activities they need funding for. You simply choose what you wish to fund, whether it's a field trip to the aquarium, exploring prehistory with the dinosaurs, or searching the stars at the planetarium. Your donation can help show kids the world that was, that is, and that could be. This is Claire Danes. DonorsChoose.org gives you the power to turn kids into students, one classroom at a time.
Honey, how's this? It's so hot, Mom. Oh, so cute.
Take it. You sure? Definitely. Or wear it like a belt.
Oh.
Okay. I love that. And this. No, it still smells like pot. Laundry.
It's time to be a parent again. Know what to do next. Visit drugfree.org.
The African Environmental Film Foundation changes lives through education. Their films show people the benefits of a healthy environment. The African Environmental Film Foundation is out there, in Africa, 12 months a year, living it, filming it, teaching it. We all rely on our shared natural world. Your support can enable everyone to play their part in safeguarding it.
Mr. Gecko, my name's Jacob Moore. I'm gonna marry your daughter.
My daughter hasn't spoken to me in years, and you know it.
you know, in the movie they say greed is good, and in this case, so is being #1 at the box office. Wall Street Money Never Sleeps, #1 over the weekend. The reunion of Michael Douglas and director Oliver Stone gobbled up $19 million in its debut. The animated adventure Legend of the Guardians debuted at #2 with $16.3 million, and last week's #1, The Town, slipped to third with $16 million. And before we go this half hour, it's usually the coach that gives the traditional pep talk before a football game. But on Friday, a Texas high school football team got a surprise that gave them plenty of pep. CBS News correspondent Don Teague has the story.
A Friday afternoon pep rally at Salina High School in Texas. They've done this hundreds of times over the decades, cheering on the football team before each big game. But yesterday's pep rally featured more than just cheerleaders and dancers. It came with a surprise pep talk by a country music superstar. For those of you who don't recognize the guy in the hat, maybe this will help. Kenny Chesney has sold over 25 million albums and routinely fills sports arenas. His latest album, which hits record stores next week, features a song called The Boys of Fall, a tribute to high school football. The Boys of Fall. The music video and an hour-long documentary airing on ESPN include players and coaches from Salina. So Chesney, who also played football in high school, popped in to say thanks and tell the kids what they're doing matters.
You don't have to be a coach. You don't have to be a player. You just have to have this game in your life.
There are, of course, more important things in this world than high school football, but on a fall Friday in Salina, Texas, it sure doesn't seem that way. Just ask the players.
This town just feeds off of it.
Or their coach.
There's an excitement in this town that wouldn't be here except for high school football.
Salina won.
There we go.
But after a surprise visit by Kenny Chesney, they already felt like winners.
Thank you, everybody.
Don Teague, CBS News, Salina, Texas.
Makes you wonder what that school is going to do for their next pep rally. How do you top a celebrity appearance? We'll have to see. Thanks for watching this half hour. I'm Terrell Brown. This is CBS News, up to the minute.
On television, online, and on the go. CBS News, the most powerful